13. November 18th is my birthday, and I believe November 22nd is when Kennedy got shot. I believe it's around that time. And we, being kids, we're looking at, is there a light at the end of this tunnel? I mean, not only am I depressed because the president of the United States got shot, it's my last hope that we had, so it was like double bummer, negativity, doom and gloom as to what the future held. And then the Beatles show up. And, we were kids, 13, and I'm talking about, my schoolmates and everything in our class, and the kids that were around, surrounding, because I really didn't have any friends back then until that day. The next, the Beatles performing on Ed Sullivan, and they sounded really good. They were great. I mean, we were like, wow, we were enjoying. My little brother and me, we were watching it along with my mom and dad. But once the camera turned to the girls going crazy for the Beatles, we wanted that. We had never, we just went from like, there's no love. I mean, we're doom and gloom here. Everybody's sad. Nobody's expressing anything but sadness. All of a sudden, it's like mass hysteria. It was like it's like somebody just snapped their fingers and it went through like from total sadness to like euphoria.
Night and day reaction.
Yeah, and it was like, I want that. I want to be treated like that. I want that much attention, because before then I was just invisible. I didn't have any language skills as far as English goes. I had just been in the country for a couple of years, and I was suffering from that, and in school, and especially if you want to make friends, so I had no friends. But so this happens that night. The next day, we all went back to school, and we had pompadours back then, like Elvis. So all we had to do was just comb it forward, and we had bangs like the Beatles. So we all did that. And all of a sudden, we looked at each other and we said, yeah, we got it. And we started talking. And music all of a sudden brought us together. Now I'm hanging out with all these different ethnic groups in their homes, meeting their families, because we had one thing in common. We had an instrument. We had a guitar. And everybody would get together and share knowledge. Like, oh, I discovered this chord. It looks like this. Oh, wow, how does it go again? Yeah, I think it's called a D chord. Oh, okay. And then you discover a chord, or you find a chord, and you want to share that with your friends. And you go to their house and hang out. So music all of a sudden superseded that human connection. Superseded anything in my life. It gave me hope completely, because now I'm part of the fabric of everything that was going on in the neighborhood. I wasn't isolated anymore. So I've always seen as music as the collective consciousness. You can agree on more things with music than anything else. You can find a bigger, for example, when I stand up on stage, I never think about who is into what political side. No, right. But I got to tell you, there are people from different political sides coming to the same show.
Oh, absolutely.
So that is, to me, that is the biggest common denominator there is. The love of music will bring everybody together.
What was it like for you getting to work with these people once you got to where you were? And how did that... Someone is at the doorbell. How do you think that those relationships have affected you throughout your life?
Oh, yeah. I mean, some more than others. because there's certain qualities that I seek in my collaborations. Uh, Honesty, trust, and there's so many. Integrity, and then there's certain people that they just represent each one of them. They check all the boxes, and one of them has to be Randy Rhoads, which was the first one that checked every single box and then added some boxes to it. And uh, see, Randy came from a musical family. His mom and dad, music professors, they built a music school, which still stands in North Hollywood, right outside, in the LA area. It's called Musonia.
Right.
So he started playing music very early age, classical acoustic guitar. And then he started playing electric because he wanted to be in rock bands and hang out with kids his age and impress the girls. Typical, just like we all do. And he built a musical integrity along the way that to me I mean, they're just like I could say definitely Ronnie James Dio pretty much paralleled that, who I was a member of Dio from 2004 until he passed away in 2010. I was his last bass player. And there's certain values that I really seek when I play with certain, in with certain musicians, and we're all human beings, we're not robots. We're not programmed to have exactly the same uh, identities within us, or degrees of the identities that define us. And but once I start playing with people, especially at a time where I needed that. I needed to find people that had certain qualities so they could be a role model to me. I was still looking for role models, especially in an areas that by the time that I met Randy, I was very new to the music industry,
Right.
to music itself. Because Randy, even though he was younger than me, he started playing music before I did, being so young. And had a music education, the type that I never got because he was born in a musical family. So he
Right.
had music was at the core of what the family was all about. So he knew he had education. It was educated on harmony theory, compositions, you name it. Everything that it's the backbone of every successful musician. That music education. So he was very rare because I got to say, traditionally, rock musicians, we just pick it up, especially in the early days before there were schools like Berkeley and
Right.
even School of Rock that give you some kind of foundation when you're very young before you head out to college and study music there, like a Berkeley and so on and or MIT musicians institution. Before it was GIT, then it started turned into MIT in Los Angeles. And but back in the day, with my generation, we just picked it up. Our music school programs were basically when I was a kid was marching band in the 60s. And then in the 70s, it maybe expanded more towards uh, jazz band, but still was not rock. You would get an education, but if you were a guitar player, you have to like basically kind of like transpose what you're reading on the trombone to your guitar.
Right.
So it still is music, but it's not like you're taking the jazz class and
Right.
you're the guitar player in the jazz band and you're playing guitar and the music that you read, the sheet music is guitar sheet music. It's not written in a different key for brass, let's say. uh So it was very different. Once I started playing with Randy, he gave me the the foundation, the musical foundation, and musical integrity foundation, that not only from an academic point of view, but also from a creative point of view. Meaning that him being able to be Randy in Ozzy, which Ozzy gave him full permission to. That's how he went from. If you listen to the Quiet Riot records that were released in Japan with Randy, and if you listen to within about 2 or 3 years, because that the second Japanese Quiet Riot record was recorded in or finished, released in '78. Because my photo is in the cover, but I'm not on the record because they couldn't afford it for me to, like, go in there and re-record the bass parts. There was, yeah. So what I'm saying is, so from that point in '78 to '80, which is when Diary of a Madman and Blizzard of Oz were actually finished recording.
Mhm.
That's 2 years. So if you listen to both albums and you listen to the musical compositions, they're completely different, because Randy was allowed to be himself once he joined Ozzy Osbourne. It's really interesting because Randy, if you look at photos of Randy with Quiet Riot, I joined the band in '78. Shortly after that, the shows the amount of shows started depleting, because new wave and punk were the flavor of the day, and there were more punk and new wave bands, new ones, in LA at that moment. So let's say if we were playing the Strip, it became less opportunities, less openings for rock bands like us, because there was still a version of Mickey Rad. Rad was called Mickey
Yes.
Rad, and then Motley Crue, it was called London, and then Motley Crue. So the scene still existed, and it wasn't until the '80s that those bands hit big, including Quiet Riot. But it didn't matter. So the amount of people coming to our shows, because our fan base was basically from the Hollywood, LA area. Once we started playing outside of that area, the fans were too young to drive to those places, because by
Right.
now that we're playing like in Orange County, which was maybe you know 60 miles away,
Right.
and they didn't have transportation, and they were too young to even be able to drive. So all of a sudden, instead of having your parents drop you at the Starwood and then pick you up later, no, our fan base started dwindling. So we were playing sometimes around 10, 15 people.
Right.
And it did not matter. If you see photos of Randy during that era, still the same passion, the way that he attacked the guitar and the way that he embodied music, because it came through his body and just came out of the guitar, from the guitar to the speakers. And it was the same. So we learned that. Remember when we're telling you about the foundation of the band? It
Oh
didn't
yeah.
matter if we had 10 people in front of us or 1,000 people in front of us, it's still gonna be the same show, because it was just a privilege to be able to get up on stage and do that. Because that's where we live. We live for that moment. Because outside of that, personally, me, I was just a starving musician. So to be able to get up on stage is everything that I was sacrificing for is right here in front of me. So I'm going to savor every single note that I'm going to play. And that carried on when, of course, Randy took that with him to playing with Ozzy. And then when I joined the band, it was the same. We had the same passion as we did playing in front of 10 people in Quiet Riot, because if you looked at the band, it was two guys at each side from Quiet Riot, the band that had been rejected just a few months before, with the guy from Black Sabbath and the guy from Black Oak, Arkansas behind, playing drums. So it was, the frame was Quiet Riot to this big picture of Ozzy Osbourne, and we had that passion. It came with us because it was natural. It still is in me. That's what I bring with me when I hit the stage. I would bring Rudy from 73-year-old Rudy. No, this is 20-something-year-old Rudy up on stage, and I connect with that.
Very apparent.
Thank God. Yeah, thank God that I find a way how to do it because I can do it, and it's a blessing to be able to do that. Whereas some people are completely disconnected from where they came from, unfortunately, because I love those people. I love them as performers, as human beings, but for some reason they just can't seem to connect with where they came from, who they really are. They program themselves to think of like, well, I'm old now, it's done, it's over, but I still gotta play for whatever reason. No, I play because I'm young. The day that I stop being young within in my consciousness, I won't be able to do it anymore.
So you're not slowing down until something
It's
else
all
comes down.
God's will. The day that I slow down is, see, I wrote a book called Off the Rails, and in it, I am very specific, and I only mention it once in the book because I didn't want to come off preachy. I wanted to, and it's a fact. This happened to me. I'm going to mention it once in the book. And what I mentioned was right before I got the phone call to join Ozzy, I had been living with Kevin Dubrow, sleeping on the floor of his spare bedroom, not on a mattress, on a sheet, shag carpeting. Thank God. It was shag carpeting because they had a little bit of cushion to it. And but my faith was stronger than ever. My connection with God. At that point, I had the strongest faith at my lowest point in my career. I just turned 30 years old,
Right.
and I had nothing in front of me, but I had faith. Faith, actually, this is what I had because I made, I was talking to God. I said, uh, if as long as my fingers are moving, I'm gonna keep playing because I'll see that as a sign that I should play. Well, be a musician. But if I never make it, my relationship with you, God, is more important than anything in my life. So basically, I surrender instead of like trying to like be like, oh, really, frustrated by nothing going on or anything. I was in peace, absolute, complete peace, even though I did not see anything in front of me, no expectations. All I
Right.
had was total faith and peace that it was going to be okay. Whatever okay meant, I was going to be okay. Within a couple of days, I got the Aussie gig, and I know it was not coincidence. So I am always in touch with that. I'm grateful. Every being able to do this at 73, 41 years after mental health came out. That's not even including the years with Quiet Riot in 1978. It's going to be in 2028, and about 4 years from now, it's going to be 50 years for me that I joined Quiet Riot for the first time. And it's all based in gratitude.
That is honestly the most beautiful story I've ever heard. Is there any advice or anything else that you would like to discuss while I still have you?
I was a mass communication major. That's what you're studying used to be called back in the
Right, right.
day. And as a matter of fact, I'm in the my Miami-Dade College Hall of Fame. I entered in 2020. Of course, I did not attend the the event because it was COVID.
Right.
But a year later, I was able to drop by and pick up the award along with my mom, which and that made it even more special than just being there with a bunch of people accepting an award. This time it was just my mom and me and the president of the college and so some other people from the staff. And I got the award, and that was just beautiful. That was really a beautiful moment, you know. And so I know a little bit, of course, of what the fundamentals are of mass communication. And it was interesting that you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation that you were doing this as an interview
Right.
For your project,
Right.
right? Now, when I was in school, uh, radio, we study radio, television, and motion picture producing and directing. That
Right.
was basic. That was it. That was the curriculum because that's the technology that we had available back then, you know. And I'm talking about when we did radio, we had the announcer, which was basically we had the cartridges behind us with the advertising, and you had to stick them in the machine and talk. You were making the announcements. You had to talk over the intro and the outros of each song, and then you had the DJ, the guy that played the record in the booth
Right.
isolated because you got the mic and he doesn't. Okay. So that was really old school. So for my project, this is what I did. I found a bootleg of the Beatles' Let It Be, and it was raw. It was I actually you probably you know where you can hear them talking to each other right before they play the song. So it
Yes.
was like really live. It was a bootleg. It was like this really thick vinyl with
Oh
no
yeah.
cover that I bought at a boutique, you know, back in the day when you if for or it was like a hippie boutique, you know,
Right.
they sold things like that. Okay, so what I did is I had some of the other students. I asked them, you know, one year, hey, can you be John Lennon? Can you be Paul McCartney? I'm going to interview you about this new record. So I did it. I interviewed live right there in the radio because we had our own little radio station that would broadcast within the campus, and so I did that, and I got an A+ for that. So I can really relate to what you're doing because I know the importance you know when you have an assignment and you have an interview with a musician, except that mine were like fake Beatles, and you got the real me.
And again, I deeply want to thank you for that. That you have no idea how much it means to be able to have
I
this
appreciate it.
with you.
It's my pleasure.
And I would just like to say that my dad also just wants me to tell you how big of a fan he was, and my brother as well. My brother is 17, and you wouldn't know the difference between a 17-year-old from 1987 and now. He only listens to music from that time frame. You
Great.
were definitely a huge part of our childhood, so I definitely just
Uh,
want to say thank you on that.
it's my pleasure. It really is. I really appreciate it. And take care of the babies.
Absolutely. Is there anything
Uh,
that you are working on that we can be expecting from you in the future?
oh, just you know, more quiet riot dates where I really don't have time for because I when I'm home I want to be home. I
Right.
want to be like I'm home, but I'm locked up in a room doing something else and ignoring my wife and my little dog. No, I'm home. I already, you know, traveling is the toughest part of the gig now. And then, you know, the performance is the payoff. And we do that every weekend. So so this and quite right, it really keeps me busy, you know.
Well, um, I'll let you get back to whatever you were doing. And again, I just want to say thank you so much. And I
Thank
will
you, Brandon.